Healing Hearts, Understanding Anxious Attachment. In this episode, we explore the roots of anxious attachment. From clinginess to constant validation seeking behaviors, we examine the telltale signs of it and their impact on communication, trust, and intimacy in adult relationships. Whether you're grappling with it yourself or seeking to understand a loved one better, this episode provides valuable insights and tips for fostering healthier, more secure relationships. So do join us today. Okay, welcome back to the Happiness Minute. Our episode today is called Healing Hearts, Understanding Anxious Attachment. I'm your host, Anna, and today we have a very special guest joining us to shed light on the topic of anxious attachment. So please give a warm welcome to Annetta Apol. Annetta is an embodied trauma therapist supporting individuals who struggle with the after effects of challenging childhoods and attachment difficulties. Her focus is on anxious attachment in relationships. So Annetta has trained extensively in NARM, Neuro-Affective Relational Model, and holds the NARM Masters Certificate. She is also a Family Constellations facilitator. So hello, Annetta. How are you today?
Hi, Anna. Hi. Great to be here with you.
Yeah, great to see you. It's been a while. I haven't seen you for a long time.
Yes, no, it's really good to see you. Yes, it's
Yeah,
great.
so our topic today is really interesting. So I very much want to know more about it as well, and also our listeners would be also, you know, thinking about what it is. So can you tell us more of what anxious attachment is?
Yeah, so it's so when we are young, very young, like babies, there's such a thing as attachment, and that's the way that we attach with our parents, or the way we are in relationship with our
Mhm.
parents. And we are all wired to actually be in close relationship with parents. And then that means that we then also feel very secure in ourselves and feel very resilient, and we can go into the world with that. But sometimes things don't go so smoothly, and so that there are different attachment styles, and they depend on the style of parenting. So this is not to blame parents,
Mhm.
but the way that they parent does have a big impact actually on the infant and on the child, the young child. And those, and then we have to adapt to the circumstances. So if they're not really that smooth, we have to adapt to that, and that is what we then bring forwards into our lives and also in our relationships. And so we have a secure attachment, which is, where we can easily go in and out of relationship. We have the anxious attachment. So when we are close to somebody, we feel more safe.
Mhm.
And when we're further away, we become anxious. And you've got the avoidant, which is just the opposite way around, where when you're closer, it creates a lot of anxiety and people prefer to be further away. And you've got also disorganized, which is a mix of the avoidant and anxious. So you may
I see.
at times feel better being near, but other times actually that causes a lot of insecurity and anxiety. So they swing a bit from one to the other. And
So,
this repeats itself in our adult relationships,
okay.
these patterns. Yeah.
So it's mostly in adult relationships. So do you mean to say these are like romantic relationships or also like friendships and that sort of thing?
Yeah. Yes, I mean, in some ways it comes back. I think it comes back in all our relationships, but it's
Hmm.
it's so much more highlighted in our
Hmm.
romantic relationships because we tend to become more and more close, and this is where all our things show up, right? So, we get triggered maybe more easily in certain ways that we don't necessarily get with our friendships or with co-workers, say, because we're not so close in proximity all the time. And also, I think the love relationship, the intimate relationship, mimics something about our early relationship with our parents.
Okay.
We're looking for closeness there, and all of these things in love. And when that feels a bit threatened or it doesn't come so easily, then of course it's, it does things to us. Um, so
Yeah.
yeah, it's more pronounced in intimate relationships for sure. Yeah.
So with that, right? What common behaviors or signs exhibited by a person who has anxious attachment? Are there like signs that you can see, like with the potential partner or with your partner, that you can see that they have this?
Yes, there are definite various behaviors. It may also be good just to maybe first go into the parenting styles that
Okay. Yeah.
potentially cause it, and then we can go into, the behaviors that set up in a way, if that's okay. Because that
Yeah.
may,
That's okay. Yeah.
yeah. So there's several parenting behaviors that can lead to anxious attachment. And one
Okay.
is when the parents are very inconsistent or unpredictable. So one moment they're there and the next moment they're not. One moment they're
Ah.
really loving and kind, and the next moment they may be angry and pushing, not wanting to know about the child, say. So it's very inconsistent and unpredictable. And so for a young baby and a young child, it causes a lot of anxiety in the system, because they don't know what they're going to get. They don't know what parent they're going to get, don't know what kind of connection they're going to get. And it causes a lot of anxiety and also alert. So they're trying to figure out already and predict what they're going to get. And so this also then, comes back into our adult intimate relationships. And another one is when parents are absent. So maybe some
Okay.
parents need to go away for work for extended periods of time or whatever it is. And even if they may be looked after well by family members, it causes also a lot of anxiety in the system as well. Because children really want their parents to be around, and they need the love and care and affection from their parents, really. So it can cause, may not have to be, but it can definitely cause also a lot of anxiety and also not feeling safe.
Mm-hmm.
And then also we may not be attuned to properly. So we may need parents to be loving and kind
Yeah.
and nurturing and soft, and maybe we get harshness,
Yeah.
or parents who, yeah, are maybe more angry or they're not really there emotionally. So we don't get met where with what we need, and so we don't feel held and we don't feel seen, and that can also cause feelings of unsafety in ourselves and insecurity. And it's also the same with emotionally distant parents. So if somebody is
Mm-hmm.
there physically, and you can get anything you need, but if emotionally parents are not there, again, that's also creates a lot of unsafety in a young person, in a young child. Um, and so,
Okay.
so this is somewhere the basis where we don't get, the security that we need when we grow up. We don't get a good, strong grounding, good base. And also, often we don't feel then that we are good the way we are. And these things go in really deep. And so that often gets triggered and when we are in intimate relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we're in an intimate relationship, we may not realize that we are anxious or have anxiety. So some of us do, but others may not necessarily. But like you said, it comes out in behaviors. And so when you have this sense that your partner is going to create more distance, because it's all about being close and being distant
Okay.
from your
Yeah.
partner. So if it feels or it seems like your partner is you know, going to go further away because maybe they need more space on their own or whatever it is, or they're preoccupied with something, with work, or, and it's suddenly feels like, oh, they're not there anymore. So someone can become really clingy
Mm-hmm.
and needy, needing a lot of reassurance. They often look for validation of themselves outside of themselves for the
Mm-hmm.
partner. So the partner needs to tell them that they are good and that they're okay the way they are. It doesn't come from the inside. Um, there's a lot of worrying about the relationship. Trying to figure out what the partner is thinking and feeling about you. Um, there's often also that people who are anxiously attached, they may ignore their own needs, and they always try
Yeah.
to make their partner happy.
Ah,
Because if the partner is
perpetual
not happy,
pleasing.
yes, exactly. Because if
Perpetually
the
pleasing
partner,
the partner.
yeah, because if the partner is not happy, they may leave, right? So everything is, underneath it is this sense that they may get abandoned or rejected. So if the partner is
Okay.
not being kept happy, they may go, right? And so for these people, it's often also hard to validate or to advocate for their own needs. They often can't really say what they want and
Okay.
may not even know what their needs are, what they may want at any moment. So these are just some of them. There are more. And you don't have to have all of them.
Mhm.
But if you have quite a few of those, then chances are that, there is anxious attachment. And just to say, about 20 to 25% of the population, they say, out of research,
Oh,
is
okay.
anxiously attached. So it's a fair amount of us, really, who
Yeah,
potentially have that. Yeah.
yeah. I think I do believe someone somewhat like that. It's just because at the moment more people are mobile now, so we tend to travel a bit for our work. So if we got a young family, sometimes you have to leave them,
Mm.
so that you can work. So I would say, yeah, it might be correct, with that research. It's just because I think more people now are more mobile, so we tend to be less at home now, um,
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
normal.
And and just to say that we don't, as parents, we don't need to get it 100% right, and you don't have to be there like
Yeah,
100% all the time for kids. It's just not possible. So what is shown again out of research is that if you have a good attention like 30% of the time,
enough.
that's already enough. And the other thing that really helps, and maybe I'm jumping ahead of your questions, I'm not
Yeah,
sure,
no,
but
no, no, no worries, no worries.
the other thing that really helps is, in parenting, but also later on in relationships. I don't know if you've heard of rupture and repair. So
No, I
when
haven't.
something goes, say, with parent and child, the parent does something and the child suffers a bit, it's not
Hmm.
really great for the child. They haven't really met the child properly. The best thing is to repair it right there and then. So, if you have been like a bit offhand or angry to the child, and maybe there wasn't a real reason, or you've just been, maybe over the top angry, it's okay as long as you then go back and make it okay again with the child. And
Okay.
actually, that is even better than being there all the time.
Prolonging.
Yeah, because what they call the rupture and repair, especially the repair, gives us more resilience. So actually,
Hmm.
that helps to build our resilience. Because when we go out into the world, there's of course we're going to meet people who are going to be rude to us or
Or
angry or
different.
indifferent or go like, well, I don't want to know about this person, and we can't crumble every time inside, right, when that
Yeah.
happens. So we
So,
need we
so
need the resilience, really.
yeah. So definitely childhood experiences actually plays a big um role in having this anxious attachment. And you mentioned inconsistent caregiving or sometimes neglect. So it does have contribution to that. So I would say, if you correct me if I'm wrong, like, but the early years of a child is quite important. So up to what age normally this um forms? Is it like the really early years, or is it during when they're toddlers, or are they like with teens?
Yeah, so I think it's different things in different stages, but attachment is the very early years. Yeah, the
Early
first, I
years.
can't even quite remember but it's the first couple of years really where this gets set up. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, we're wired, so our nervous system, we're wired for connection. We seek
Mm-hmm.
connection. And a child, like a baby, is really dependent on their parents for survival. So if the parents are not there, it threatens their survival, really. And that's why we will do anything. So as a baby, you will do anything to stay attached to your parents. Even if they don't, seem to be interested or are depressed or angry or whatever there may be a whole host of different things happening. The child will always try to make it okay for the parents in a way and make themselves wrong with that. They
Yeah.
see themselves as bad in a way. Yeah.
You you mentioned about the fear of abandonment. So it does play in that respect. So also because of fear of abandonment is there, then people tend to have affects the ability to trust others in close relationships. So what sort of coping mechanisms can individuals um, to manage that sort of like to manage the feelings of insecurity like you mentioned, what coping mechanisms should they employ?
Um, yeah, it's a good question. So for one thing, I mean, it's good to, if you think you have some of this, it's really good to know about it. Because what I
Mm-hmm.
often hear is, that people say, "Oh, this is just how I am. Like I am just anxious, or I am just really needy, or whatever
Mm-hmm.
it is." And actually, it's more a bit of a learned response in a way, to early circumstances. So you can change it. We can change our attachment systems, how we attach. If we can go from more anxious or avoidant to more secure, say. So it's good to just know that this change is possible, that we can do something about it. And then one thing is to also become aware of what is actually really triggering, in, say, if you're in an adult relationship, intimate relationship, what are the things that trigger me? What are the things that really cause me anxiety, say, or cause me to become clingy? And there will always be signs, maybe the partner does something or says something, that there will be certain things that somehow make it worse. And it can also be useful just to, with your partner, to speak about this, to really share, because I think that's often difficult,
Yeah.
that people don't share what is actually going on. They don't say, "Oh, I really don't like it when you go away for a long time, for your work, say, I feel really insecure," or whatever. Usually that doesn't get said, but instead, there's this, like, maybe constantly texting or constantly ringing, constantly checking out where they are. So it's good to try and say how things are affecting us, really, also emotionally. Yeah. So
Yeah.
these are just very few things that people can,
Yeah, they
um,
can they can
yeah,
do also
themselves.
I would say like of course like if you're a partner of someone who has anxious attachment, you might want to discuss as well the importance of setting boundaries with them. So how do you do that? Are there like like words that you need to tell your partner, or are there something, or you just need to like discuss it with them?
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, one thing is, the open communication, as we call it. So to saying, like, rather than maybe pointing the finger at the partner, like, you always do this and that,
Mm-hmm,
you could
mm-hmm,
just say, well, when you do that, for me, that makes me feel X, Y, Z. I
mm-hmm,
feel you struggle with that, or I feel anxious, or I fear that you may go, just to try and be more open about what is actually really going on. And then you can, discuss and see how maybe even together you can manage that between the two of you. So, somebody may just need a bit more reassurance, or when, say a partner leaves quite abruptly or changes their plans. um, so if they had plans, say, for the evening, and then the partner goes and says, "Oh, I can't make it last minute," it can also, that can
mm-hmm,
already cause anxiety. So if we're aware of that, then we can say, "Oh, it's nothing about you." You can address it in a different way. Or, "I still love you. I'm here, but
mm-hmm.
unfortunately, I can do it." So you can bring it in a kind of way, really, and take your partner into consideration. And with boundaries, it's, I think, for both sides, yeah, just to say what is okay and what isn't okay. So it's respecting your own needs, and also, of course, including your partner as well. Um, yeah, being able to say maybe more clearly yes and more clearly no. Um, but being kind with that towards your partner, right? Because you are in a
Yeah,
partnership. So,
yeah, that's right.
yeah,
Yeah,
so your partner is not your enemy type thing, right? So they are your
correct.
friend.
Well, it depends.
There may be
Just kidding.
times when it seems like that, for sure, but
Okay, because I also was wondering, like, every one of us will walk this life differently from others. So
Yeah.
sometimes, it's out of your control. When you were younger, you might have a trauma of some sort.
Hmm.
So would will there be an impact when you have this trauma on the formation of anxious attachment? For example, I know it's like a bit dreary, like a death of a parent. Would it be like potentially they would have this um as well when they grow up?
Yeah, so I mean, there will be very likely there will be an impact for sure, because that's such a dramatic thing to happen, right? If a parent dies, especially when a child is young. But at any age, it's younger ages can be difficult, so it will have an impact. I mean, it's hard to say maybe how because we all deal
Mhm.
so differently with those things, and it also depends a bit on the people around. So if you had a lot of support, especially emotional support, because that it's usually about emotions, if you cannot share your grief, say, with the other parent or with family members,
Mhm.
or maybe your anger or whatever is there, if that can't be heard or can't be aired, then you have to do something with it. And so that will then have an impact on your life, if you have to push your anger away or your grief away, that will definitely have an impact later in life as well. But
Yes.
it's maybe hard to say exactly because we all do things a bit differently. Um,
Yeah.
but
So
yeah, things are very impactful for sure. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, because it can potentially have that. I think so. So with that, having said that, can therapy help with individuals with anxious attachment? Because sometimes, like you mentioned,
Yeah.
they don't know that they have it, but
Hmm.
people around them see it clearly. So can therapy be helpful, and what are the types of therapy that they can utilize or use to help with it?
Yeah, therapy can really be helpful. And I mean, there's been a real big change, I think, in the therapy scene more
Hmm.
recently with the knowledge about the nervous system and how these things impact us and, the responses that we have, innate responses of fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. And these responses can stay. So it's actually therapy wise, it can be good to work with somebody who knows of this, who
Hmm.
works with this with a more trauma informed or trauma sensitive type of therapy. And I mean, there are lots of things you can do yourself for sure. Like I said,
Okay.
looking at the triggers and maybe talking about it more openly with the partner. But because this trauma happens in a relationship with your parents where you were not really met and seen and heard,
Hmm.
um, those very young parts often need
Yeah.
somebody there in relationship, as in a therapist, to hold that, because often there's quite a lot of charge there. So yeah, I would say look for somebody who is maybe trauma informed, has that
Trauma
knowledge.
informed. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, because we can endlessly talk about what happened, and it
Yeah.
can be useful, but it's not going to deal with our body, happening in our nervous system, what's happening in our body, because we hold our emotions in our bodies.
Hmm.
Um, we hold these fight, flight, freeze, those responses in our bodies,
Hmm.
and we cannot talk ourselves out of that. So it needs a different approach, really. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. When you mentioned that, I'm actually thinking, um, are there any misconceptions or myths about anxious attachment? Maybe they will say, "Oh, if you've got that, you're a dangerous person." Are there are there are there like myths surrounding it as well that you encountered
Um,
when?
Yeah, I did write one down the other day and I can't remember right now. But one thing is that people think that this is just how they are. And I hear this, quite often from my clients even. Oh, this is how I am. Like, I just have these behaviors and I cannot do anything about it. Or I just
I
am
see.
this anxious person and I cannot do anything about it. But that's not true, so we
Mm.
can we can change this. We can change our behaviors. We can work with the emotional parts of it, so that we can actually become more securely attached. And I think that's quite a big misconception that, there's nothing we can do about it once this is how it is. This is how
You
it is
just
forever.
live with it.
You just live with it, but you don't have to live with it at all. So this is the thing, you can change it. So yeah, and also maybe maybe blaming going on, like maybe saying, oh, this person is just whatever's, so easily upset, or or they're so jealous all the time, as if it's their fault, and that's often what
Yeah.
we see. But again, it's there for a really good reason, so
Hmm.
if you can see that these people do this, have these behaviors for a really good reason, even though we can't see why.
Hmm.
um, when they were younger, there was a very good reason for all of it. And it
Yeah.
may be good just to keep that in mind. They don't do that because they like doing that, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a behavior that's driven by the underlying
Something.
anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
anxiety.
Early trauma as well.
Yeah, yeah, just feeling anxious, feeling unsafe, all of these things, really. Yeah, not feeling good enough. That drives all this behavior, really, in a way. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So thank you for that, Annetta. So I think second to the last question for you. Um, what what key things would our listeners like from you, what sort of like tips you can give them as well, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, so if you think you may have, some of these signs, or a partner or a friend, and I would say really read up on it. I mean, there's a lot of information online, or
Okay. Are there books that are out there?
yeah. Oh gosh, I have a book that I had read years ago. I can't see it right now. Hang on. Attached. It's called Attached. I mean, that's
Okay.
interesting. It also goes a bit into it, but there's many books really.
Hmm.
Sorry, I can't really recommend any. I'm just looking at my bookshelf right now, but I'm not quite sure, apart from the Attached, which is already a bit older, but there's lots of information out there actually. And maybe read some different books and look at some
Uh-huh.
different resources to get, different information.
Okay.
But there's a lot out there, even just on the internet. If you type in anxious attachment, you'll get a lot of stuff coming your way. So it's good to read up on it, and just to understand it, to
Yes,
understand
that's right.
why this is
Because
happening.
I would think that it's actually a wide subject as well. Because like you said, when we first started speaking, there's also like parenting styles. So there are
Yeah,
different things to it. So you need to read a lot more about those as well. So yeah, um,
yeah, yeah.
that's
Yeah,
good.
I think it's really helpful. So it's just really helpful, and it can be a relief to just understand why all this is happening. Because often people
Correct.
don't
Yeah.
know why they are so jealous, or so needy, or clingy.
Yeah.
And just to know that there's a really good reason for
Yes.
it, even
Yeah.
though we've forgotten about it. It can be a big relief, really, to know that, oh, it's not me. I'm not mad or something,
Hmm.
but something else is driving this. It can be, yeah, a huge relief. And then to know that you can do something about it is, yeah, it's really cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think my last question is, how can they reach you, and how you can help our listeners as well with what you do?
All right. Okay. Yeah. So I mean, I am trained in NARM, Family Constellations, and NARM is really be working with, as you said earlier already, introduction with the what I would call leftovers of, maybe challenging childhoods. I'm working very much in the here and now, and it's a way of really coming into our adulthood and becoming a real, autonomous person, where we can stand on 2 feet and go into the world doing the things that we really want to do. So it's very much more working with the autonomy, with our will, and our drive to go out into the world. Um, and yeah, it has all the underlying attachment theories, and how we work with the nervous system is all in there. So it's a really helpful approach, because it actually looks at the dynamics that keep all
Hmm.
of those behaviors in place, and that keep our anxiety and high alert in place. Um, And there's others as well. I mean, I'm not saying that this is the only one. There's other models as
Yeah.
well, which is really helpful. And then, yeah, I mean, my email address is annetta@annettaapol.com, and you can always feel free to email me at my website, annettaapol.com.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm out there on social media as well. So,
Okay, cool. Yes. Oh yeah, they need to look at your Instagram as well, because you do give out like really nice post in there. So
yeah, yes, I've been posting about this more recently. Yes, yeah.
yeah.
That's right.
Okay. Yeah. So thank you, Annetta, for joining us today. That was really, really interesting. Now I'm actually just gonna be reading a lot of books, and I'm gonna look at that book that you mentioned as well, because this is a very interesting topic, and I think it's quite good to know about it, because sometimes when you're informed, then if you have that, then you would be able to correct yourself and be a better person. So yeah, thank you again, Annetta.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I really
So
enjoyed it.
yeah, so everyone, thank you for joining us today. So until the next episode, which is in the next 2 weeks, do join us. Do share, like, comment, subscribe to our channel, and also like this episode. So thank you. Bye.